3 seasons, Silo has quietly convinced us that the head of IT is the most intelligent person in the silo. Bernard knew more than anyone else. He understood the order, protected the secrets of the founders, and spent years making impossible decisions that no one else could even comprehend. Naturally, we assumed his successor would need those same qualities. Someone brilliant, someone disciplined, someone capable of carrying the weight of hundreds of years of hidden history. But episode 3 completely shatters that assumption, with one chilling conversation. The algorithm doesn't praise Camille Sims for her intelligence.
No, you were chosen because of your ability to lie.
It doesn't congratulate her for her loyalty. Instead, it reveals the one quality that truly matters above everything else.
At its core, the job requires deception.
Her ability to deceive. That single line quietly changes everything we thought we understood about leadership inside the silo. Because if deception is the qualification that matters most, then the head of IT was never meant to protect the truth. The head of IT exists to protect the lie. And if that's the real job, then Camille may not simply be replacing Bernard. She may be the closest thing the founders have ever created to their perfect successor. Before we uncover why Camille may be even more dangerous than Bernard ever was, do me one quick favor. If the algorithm hasn't already flagged this video as excessively curious, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, it helps the channel grow, and unlike accepting a promotion in IT, it doesn't come with centuries of secrets or impossible moral choices. And make sure you stay until the very end, because I don't think episode 3 is simply introducing a new head of IT. I think it's revealing the true purpose of the position for the very first time, and once you see it, you'll never look at Bernard, Camille, or the founders the same way again. Let's start with the moment that changes everything. During Camille's conversation with the algorithm, we're given what sounds like a simple explanation for why she was chosen. But listen carefully to what the system actually values. It never says she was selected because she understands the technology better than everyone else. It never claims she's the most qualified engineer, the best administrator, or the most experienced leader. Instead, the algorithm highlights something far more unsettling. Camille can deceive people without hesitation. She can look someone in the eye, tell them exactly what they need to hear, and convince them the lie is the truth. At first, that sounds like a disturbing personality trait, but from the founder's perspective, it's the most valuable leadership skill imaginable. After all, you can't preserve a civilization built on carefully hidden secrets unless someone is willing to protect those secrets every single day. That revelation forces us to completely rethink Bernard's role throughout the first 2 seasons. We assumed Bernard was the keeper of knowledge because he understood the order better than anyone else. But what if understanding the truth was never enough? What if the founders always believed knowledge without deception would eventually destroy the system? Bernard didn't simply memorize history. He performed it. Every speech about the pact, every carefully chosen explanation, every omission, every reassuring smile during moments of crisis, those weren't just acts of leadership. They were acts of storytelling. His real responsibility wasn't making people believe the truth. It was making sure they never realized they were living inside a carefully constructed narrative. And that's exactly where Camille begins to surpass him. Bernard often looked exhausted by the burden he carried. There were moments when his expression revealed the emotional cost of protecting the founders' vision. He understood the weight of every decision because he never completely separated himself from the people those decisions affected. Camille, on the other hand, appears to be moving in a very different direction. Episode 3 suggests she's beginning to internalize the founders' philosophy instead of merely enforcing it. That's a crucial difference. A leader who follows orders can eventually question them. A leader who believes those orders are morally necessary becomes much harder to stop. Camille no longer sees deception as a temporary tool. She increasingly sees it as the foundation of survival itself. Then the mine attack proves just how far that transformation has already gone. Faced with the possibility that Lucas may have discovered information connecting Silo 18 to neighboring silos, Camille doesn't hesitate to authorize the release of poisonous gas into active tunnels. She knows innocent miners are still underground. She knows people who have committed no crime may never come back out. Yet she proceeds because, in her mind, the survival of the system outweighs the survival of individuals. That's the exact philosophy the founders built into the silo centuries ago. One life can be sacrificed to protect 10. 10 can be sacrificed to protect 1,000. Eventually, numbers replace names and morality becomes mathematics. Camille isn't simply obeying the algorithm anymore. She's starting to think exactly the way it does. And that may be the most frightening twist in episode 3. The algorithm doesn't need perfect obedience. It needs perfect belief. Once a leader reaches the point where they willingly choose deception and sacrifice without being forced, the founder's system has achieved its ultimate goal. It has created someone who will preserve the lie not because they're afraid of the consequences, but because they genuinely believe the lie is the only thing standing between civilization and collapse. That's why I believe Camille Sims isn't just Bernard's successor. She's becoming the founder's greatest success. And if that's true, Juliette isn't fighting one corrupt official anymore. She's fighting an entire philosophy that has spent 352 years learning how to reproduce itself, one leader at a time. The more I think about it, the more I believe the algorithm wasn't simply searching for a replacement after Bernard's death. It had been evaluating Camille long before she ever realized she was a candidate. That's exactly how a predictive system would operate. It wouldn't wait until a crisis to choose new leadership. It would constantly observe people's decisions, measuring how they respond under pressure, how easily they can compartmentalize guilt, and whether they prioritize the stability of the silo over the lives of individuals. Every difficult choice becomes another test. Every moral compromise becomes another piece of data. By the time Bernard is gone, the algorithm already knows who can carry the founder's mission forward. Camille wasn't promoted because she passed one final exam. She was promoted because she'd been passing hundreds of invisible ones for years without even knowing they existed. That also changes the way we should think about the conversations between Camille and the algorithm. On the surface, it looks like the machine is giving her advice, almost like a mentor guiding an inexperienced successor. But look closer, and something far more sophisticated is happening. The algorithm rarely issues direct commands. Instead, it frames possibilities, presents logical outcomes, and lets Camille arrive at the conclusion herself. That's an incredibly effective form of manipulation because people are far more committed to decisions they believe they've made on their own. If the algorithm had simply ordered Juliette's execution, Camille might have resisted. Instead, it presents Juliette's death as the most rational solution to restoring stability. By the time Camille begins considering it, the decision feels like her own. That's exactly how the founder's philosophy survives. Not through force, but through carefully shaping the way their leaders think. What's fascinating is how different this makes Camille from Bernard. Bernard always carried the weight of history. You could see it in the hesitation before some of his decisions, in the quiet moments where he looked like a man trapped inside a role he could never escape. He understood what preserving the silo demanded, but he also understood what it cost. Camille is beginning from the opposite direction. She isn't burdened by centuries of secrets because she hasn't lived with them for decades. Instead, she's embracing the logic behind those secrets almost immediately. That makes her uniquely dangerous. Bernard protected the system despite his doubts. Camille may end up protecting it because she no longer has any. And a leader who no longer questions the system is often far more dangerous than one who secretly fears it. There's another detail from episode 3 that deserves much more attention. The algorithm tells Camille that deception is her greatest strength, but notice what it doesn't mention. It never praises compassion, courage, intelligence, or wisdom. Those qualities aren't ignored by accident. They're irrelevant to the role the founders designed. That's an astonishing revelation because it suggests the head of IT has never been intended to inspire people. The position exists to manage perception. In other words, the most important leader in the silo isn't chosen for the ability to solve problems. They're chosen for the ability to convince everyone else the problems don't exist. Once you realize that, the entire political structure of the silo looks less like a government and more like a carefully maintained illusion, with the head of IT serving as its chief storyteller. And perhaps that's the darkest implication of all. For years, we've assumed the greatest threat facing Silo 18 was the algorithm itself, a machine calculating impossible outcomes with cold precision. But episode 3 hints that the machine isn't the true danger. The real danger is what happens when human beings stop seeing themselves as individuals and start thinking exactly like the system they serve. Algorithms don't inherit power on their own. People choose to carry them forward. That's why the founders built a process that doesn't just preserve technology, it preserves ideology. Camille may be the latest head of IT, but she certainly won't be the last. As long as the system can find another person willing to believe that deception is the highest form of leadership, the founders, influence will continue long after every original architect has turned to dust. And that may be the most terrifying secret Silo has revealed yet.